join me as I show you how to do this pinched pearl bracelet. It's a beautiful little design featuring some right angle weave with a little bit of a pinch. Remember, if you need any supplies like the Pearls Seed Beads or that beautiful Claspgarten clasp, go ahead and look below the video in the description. We'll put a link there to get back to our site. Gather up your materials on your bead on it board and let's get started. So to begin the pinched pearl bracelet, we are using size 8 crystal dragon thread along with a size 11 beading needle. I have 8 OC beads, 11 OC beads, and 4mm pearls. We're going to begin with our 8 OC beads, creating right angle weave units, and then pinching the 11 OC bead in between those right angle units. In addition to that, we'll come down the project a second time, adding the pearls to one side, and then the third time going the other way. Because of that, I need a stop bead at the end, but I don't need an extra ton of thread. We are going to do a series of right angle weave with a ladder stitch connection. So I want you to do a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of your 8 OC beads on, and let that drop down to your stop bead. From here, go ahead and sew back through your first 4 beads and bring your thread and needle out. So we're going to think about this right angle weave unit here as 2 to the bottom, 2 to the top, and 1 to each side. Coming out your right side, I want you first to grab another 8 OC bead, this is our ladder stitch, and we are going to sew back through the same 8 0 that our thread is currently coming out of. And that puts that bead there, connection, ready for my next step. From here, I want you to sew through bead number 1 along the bottom, because there's 2 there. We're going to split those 2 beads along the bottom, and we'll do the same at the top, and you're going to add an 11 OC bead. Sew through bead number 2, through your bead that's on the right hand most side next to your stop bead, and then those 2 beads that are sitting at the top, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to rotate it in my hand so it's easier for me to hold. Sew through bead number 1 at the top, add an 11 0, and sew through bead number 2. What you'll notice is that the 11 0 almost looks like it's pinched in between those 2 8 OC beads. From here, I want you to go in and we're going to progress. So you're going to go back through the rightmost side of your right angle unit, which is that right 8 OC bead, and then we're going to reinforce this connection point and step up into our next 8 OC bead. When we go through that next 8 OC bead here, we're going to add 2 beads for the top of the next right angle unit, 1 bead for the right hand side, 2 beads for the bottom, and back through this initial bead here. Give a nice tight pull, and that's your next right angle unit. We have 2 beads at the top, 1 on the right, 2 beads on the bottom, and the bead that was the right bead there is going to become the left side of our next unit. From here, I want you again to sew over through your top beads, always through the top here because of the way that we're doing the connection, and then you're going to come out the rightmost bead, oops, and not pull your whole project away. Give a nice tight pull. And as you're coming out the bottom of that right angle weave bead there, that right side, add another one of your 8s and circle around. That creates that 8 0 there for our next unit. Sew through the first of the 2 bottom beads, the rightmost bead, add your 11, sew up through the second bead and through the left hand side as well. Sew through bead number 1 along the top, bringing your thread and needle out, add in that pinched 11, and sew through bead number 2 along the top. From here, go down through the right hand side, and once again, up through that extra bead that you added. So this creates a really pretty little chain too. You don't need to add the pearls in like we're going to be doing as we come back along the project, adding the pearls to the top and the bottom. This is a simple, pretty little chain as is. If you don't want to add the pearls and you just want a matching necklace to go along with your bracelet, simply add an 11-0 on either side of your 8s at the connection point, and it'll be a very pretty bracelet itself. You're going to keep going, making these little connection pinched points the whole way along the wrist, so about 7 inches. The extra distance that we need is going to be made up by our beautiful Claspgarten clasp that we're going to add when we get to the end of these units. So I've come down the whole bracelet doing that nice little chain. Again, looks really pretty as is. It could be a great necklace too as you're working with it. And I've separated out my push clasp here from the Pearl Clasp style beautiful Claspgarten clasp. And we are going to add that before coming back down the rows, pinching our seed beads together again and adding our pearl. So how are we going to add our clasp here and this closure? What I want to do is add an 11-0 seed bead. Then we're going to add another 8-0 seed bead, our clasp. We're going to go back through the 8-0 seed bead, add another 11-0, and go back through that same 8 below it. Those seed beads will kind of just sit stacked right next to one another there on top. Reinforce, go back through the 11, back through the 8, back through the clasp, back down through the 8, back down through the 11, and we're going to get ready to add our pearls. We're going to do the same thing on the other side and add the alternative side of the clasp as well, that really pretty brushed gold. Coming down here, coming out the 11, we're going to exit through our 8-0 seed bead. We're going to go through our next 8-0 there, going back on that little ladder stitch connection. We're going to go down through the 8s along the bottom, skipping over the 11-0 seed bead, and bringing your needle and thread out. As you come out, you're going to grab one of your 4mm pearls, skip over, and go through the next 8-0 seed bead right there. It's going to pull the design a tiny bit cinch, a little bit smaller, but it's going to make it a lot more consistent looking. You can see then all you're going to do is go down through those 8-0s on this one side, adding in your pearl, and then picking up the next 8-0 in line. They're just going to sit right on top there. Bring your thread and needle down the right hand side, or the bottom rather. We're going to attach our clasp on the other side, making sure to reinforce it, knotting onto that original thread as well, and then come back along the top. Once you get to the end of adding your first layer of pearls in here, you're coming out the end and you want to reinforce your clasp. I've gone through once, come back around, gone through twice. I'm about to go through a third time, going up through my 11 and my 8, just like the opposite side, before we came down to enter the pearls, going through the clasp, coming back down through the 8 and through the 11. Once I'm out through the 11 on that side, I'm going to take off this stop bead and tie that thread end to the one that's longer here. Then what we're going to do is simply come down the opposite side and add in our pearls on the opposite side. I'll keep that there and then I'll burn it off later, taking my needle and thread through that next 8, giving a nice tight pull to get that knot further down, and then once again continue down the top of the bracelet now, going through your 8-0s, adding your pearl, and then going through again the next line of 8-0s. When I go through, I try not to go through the 11-0, I'm just going through the pearls, which is going to pop that 11-0 out even further. You can see they fit perfectly in that little space. We're going to go down through the design, adding them in before we tie off the thread on the opposite side. When you get to the end of the project, you can choose if you want to also to add one more grouping of pearl here. I've added my one pearl there, and I'm going to add another one on the other side. But right now, while my thread and needle is coming out that 8-0, remember we're going to go in and reinforce our clasp. It's always nice to go in and have, I try to do 3 threads going through my clasp. You can also use a wire guard if you want to. Go back down through the other side, going through that 11-0 and that 8 coming on out. And then when I go through that 8-0, you can see here's a little trick. Sometimes I pull it with my pliers. Do a little wiggle as you pull so you don't break your bead. And then as you're going through here, making sure you don't see any extra thread showing, coming out the 8 on the opposite side, add one more of your pearl, and then it's time to get rid of our thread end. So what we're going to do is go into the next section here, get rid of our thread end by going underneath a bridge thread, a thread that connects one bead to the other, not picking up any beads, just sewing underneath that, making a loop and sew through the loop once and sew through the loop twice. What that's going to do is create what they call a sewer's knot, which is a nice tight knot, and you pull it between the project there, it hides in and you don't even see it. I'm going to tuck my thread then further over into another section next to the white pearl, since it's a white thread. Go in here with my thread zap or my thread burner, burn that thread edge down. With the pearls, you want to be a little bit careful, pull that thread away from the pearls so that way you don't burn any of your pearl and have a black mark on it. That would be sad. And there you have the end. Going to go back to the start here as well. Burn off that thread edge and down close to the project right next to that lined bead so you can't see it. The Claspgarten clasp fits perfectly with this design. You can see you can make a single row, you can make multi-rows, joining in together and sharing the pearl. There's another idea too, if you want to have a little bit of a challenge. This also would be great as a necklace. As I was designing, I was thinking you could do this as a necklace and then just have the pearls on the bottom and add a little seed bead on the top to create that curvature. Lots of ideas with this design, and I hope you really enjoy making this pinched pearls bracelet. Thanks so much for joining me in creating this pinched pearls bracelet. It's really fun to do some simple designs with a twist and having the fit be just perfect. Remember, if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads, and check out below the video the description for links to the products as well if you want to check them out. Thanks so much for joining, and stay tuned, Potomac Beaters, for more inspirational designs.